let's go. So we are holding literally on the last line on Chav Ches Amid Beis on 28b4. Just give me a second. Let me kill that. All right. There we go. Timing is everything. Here we go. So the short, let us just quickly go back to Amid Aleph, Chav Ches Amid Aleph, the Mishnah all the way on the bottom of the page, just to quickly review it. Good morning, Jerry. How are you? So,
Morning.
Good morning. So we're just going to go back to the Mishnah on 28a3, just to review it before we begin today. The Mishnah says as follows: Chametz shel nachri she'over olav haPesach. A chametz of a nachri that she'over olav haPesach, which went over Pesach, which is another way of saying that it went over Pesach and it still exists afterwards. Says the Gemara, mutter b'hanol, it's mutter with benefit. And in fact, as we're going to see, it even means mutter to eat. V'shel Yisrael, but chametz of Yisrael, she'over olav haPesach, that went over the Pesach, chametz which the Jew did not nullify, did not mevatel, so it was in his property, which means that he was over on the prohibitions of you shall not see, you shall not find, bal yiroeh, bal yimotzeh. Says the Gemara, also says the Mishnah, also b'hanol, shenema lo yiroeh l'cho sa'or, because you shall not see chametz. Okay, and then the Mishnah, then right away the Gemara says, who's the pratana of our Mishnah? And it said it can't be Rabbi Yehuda, it can't be Rabbi Shimon, and it can't be Rabbi Gamliel. And real quick, what was that? Rabbi Yehuda says whether chametz before Pesach, meaning from the 7th hour and on, whether chametz she'over alav Pesach, chametz that made it through Pesach and now is in existence after Pesach, they're usher, and if you eat it or you have a benefit from it, you're chayav on a lav, on a prohibition. And certainly on Pesach itself, you not only is there a prohibition, but you're chayav kares to be cut off. Rav Shimon says just the opposite. Chametz before Pesach, chametz after Pesach, there's no isur min haTorah biblically whatsoever. On Passover itself, I agree, there's a prohibition, and there is the kares to be cut off. And Rabbi Yossi HaGalili said this. He said, I have a wonderment why anybody ever thinks that chametz is prohibited from having benefit. So according to Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, you definitely can have the things. So this is where we're up to. We are now on the bottom of 28b4. The last word on the second to last line. Okay? Says the Gemara, Mani Masnisin. Who is the Tana of our Mishnah that says that the chametz of a goy she'over alav haPesach, the chametz of a goy that went over Pesach is and now is in existence after Pesach? So in other words, the food that's in Winn-Dixie or Publix, right, is mutter. It's mutter after Pesach. It's mutter to eat it after Pesach. But from a Jew whose chametz was over alav haPesach, a Jew whose chametz was in existence over Pesach, who he had not nullified it, hadn't sold it or anything like that, which means that the Jew had been over on you shall not see, you shall not hear, you shall not find, that you're not allowed to eat such a chametz. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, if you're going to tell me that the Tana of our Mishnah was Rabbi Yehuda, chametz stamekama, when Rabbi Yehuda said that all chametz is osir, whether from 7 hours and on Erev Pesach, whether chametz on Pesach itself, or whether chametz after Pesach, Rabbi Yehuda simply made one broad statement. He said, chametz is osir, which meant that not just Jewish chametz, but even Gentile chametz, not a guy's chametz. So therefore, obviously, Rabbi Yehuda cannot be the Tana of our Mishnah. So now it says like this. So, Rabbi Shimon, if you want to say Rabbi Shimon is the Tanner of our Mishnah, we are now on the daf 29a1. 29a1. Yisrael Nami Mishari Kamishari, as Rashi says, Bahano La'achiz Amani. Rav Shimon says, Chametz before Pesach is completely mutter, and Chametz after Pesach, even though it was Chametz She'over Alav Pesach, even though it was chametz that went through that the entire Pesach and it was in existence, and the Jew was over on the Averis im kol zeh, by the time you get to the end of Pesach, that's it. There's no more Isser of chametz. Anybody can eat from the chametz. So therefore, our Mishnah, which clearly says that the chametz of a Jew she'over olav Pesach is no good, is also clearly cannot be Rabbi Shimon. The Rabbi Yossi Galili, Filu Toich Zamani Nami Mishari Kamishari Ba'ano. Rabbi Yossi Galili says chametz is always allowed for benefit, whether before Pesach, on Pesach, and even after Pesach. So therefore, none of the three of them match up to what our Mishnah says. So who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Who's the author of our Mishnah? So it says Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yehuda. The truth is, it's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said that chametz is also before, during, and after Pesach. Chametz shover alav Pesach. Chametz that went over Pesach is also after Pesach. He was said in blanket, which mashma meant not just Jewish chametz, but even goyish chametz. So how do you reconcile Rabbi Yehuda to say that he is the author of our Mishnah? So it says Rabbi Yaakov, because we learn it like this: V'yoliv sa'ar da'achila misa'ar d'riyah, because he learns the prohibition of leaven, sourdough, yeast, regarding its consumption from the Isser of seeing chametz, of the Isser of Bal Yeroeh. You shall not see chametz. Mar sa'ar d'riyah. Just like we learned this before, that the chametz of regarding not being seen, the lav, the prohibition of you shall not see it, shalach yataroya, we said from yours you shall not see, because the pasuk says lo yoreya lecha sar, you shall not see chametz that is yours. So the pasuk goes out of its way to say lecha, to you. So it says like this: Ma sa'ad yiriyah, just like regarding the leaven of the leaven of being seen, of that you have the prohibition of Bal Yeroeh. Shelecha iyataroyeh, that means that only from yours you shall not see. Aval ataroyeh shalacherim, but you're allowed to see the chametz of others, i.e., the goyim, the shel gevaya, and from the Most High of Hegdish, of holy, from the holy, the chametz that's in the Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, afsar da'achila. So regarding the same thing, the sar, the yeast, the chametz, regarding eating, shelacho'i ata oichel. From yours you cannot eat. Aval ata oichel shelacherim, but you're allowed to eat the chametz of a goy, the shel gevoya, and even the chametz of the Beis Hamikdash. So the Gemara says, Bidinhu, and therefore it really should have said the Boile, the Mishnah, the Mishnah should have clearly said, Da'afilu ba'achila nami shari, that the truth is the chametz of a goy is mutter to eat, you're allowed to eat it on Pesach, not just before Pesach, but even on Pesach, and certainly after Pesach. Va'aydi the Tana also bahano. But because it taught that the chametz of a Jew is also for eating and certainly for benefit, Tananami de Nochri Mutabano. It contrasted that by saying that the guy's chametz is mutabano. Ubedinhu de boile misni da afilu b'toich zamano. Even during its time, that means during the 7 days of Pesach. Mutter, the next word says bahano. Don't learn it bahano. It even means eating. Mutter ba'achilo. Switch the word bahano to achilo. Ta'afilu b'toich zamani mutter ba'achilo. That means even during Yontif, during Pesach, according to this logic, you would be able to eat the chametz of a goy even on Pesach. But since it was teaching about the Isser of chametz she'over alav Pesach, chametz that goes over Pesach of the Jews, that it's usher to have benefit from such a and to eat such chametz after Pesach. So all it says about the goy's chametz is that after chametz she'over alav Pesach of a goy's is certainly good, but the truth is chametz of a goy would be you would allowed to eat the chametz of a goy theoretically what it goes you on Pesach. That means you were allowed to be going to the Publix and Winn-Dixie and go ahead and eat food. So Tosfos, of course, jumps all over this and essentially says, what we're saying here, this is one of those rare Gemaras when you're talking about theory versus reality. The theory over here was we're comparing eating of chametz to seeing chametz, just like seeing chametz. It's only your own chametz that you can't see, but you're allowed to see the chametz of the goy and of hegdish. So to eating, what he called, you only your own chametz you can't eat, but you can eat the chametz of the goy. He said that's all very nice theory, but how does the food get into your mouth? By definition, the goy hands you the food. He puts it into your hand. The moment it goes into your hand, you acquire it. You made an acquisition. You were kind of it. You made an acquisition. The moment you made an acquisition, that chametz now belongs to you. Once it belongs to you, a Jew obviously cannot eat chametz on Pesach that belongs to a Jew. So it turns out the chametz that you're allowed to eat theoretically according to the way it works out, but it's only theoretically. Because the only way it can actually get to you is if it ends up in your hand. It ends up in your hand. By definition, it now belongs to you. It belongs to you. You no longer get it. So this is the first person on the top. In the first few lines, makes this point. He said, in reality, of course, we cannot eat the chametz of a goy because the only way you get that chametz is by definition when you take ownership of it. Even if the guy gives it to you as a gift, it doesn't matter. It's transferred to you. So the reality was no way that you could actually eat the chametz. But theoretical, and this is the insight because we're learning the halacha, we're learning laws. In laws, many times we can have what is the legal reality, even though factually it's impossible to carry out. Because on one hand, legally it works out that it would give with only the Isser regarding a Jew's chametz. Mashenkin a guy's chametz would be mutter, but it's only mutter in theory because there's no way for me to actually benefit from it or to eat from it. Because in order to do so, I would have to acquire the guy's chametz, and once I acquire it, it's mine. Good. So this was just a theory thing. Now the Gemara goes further. Rava says it's not Rabbi Yehuda. In Layla Rav Shimon, it's Rav Shimon. And Rav Shimon said again that chametz before Pesach, chametz she'over alav chametz that went over Pesach, but now it's in existence after Pesach. It's all good. Before and after, there's no issue of chametz. Forget it. It's only during Yom Tov, which meant that even a Jew's chametz, even a Jew's chametz that went over Pesach, which the Jew was over. You shall not see, you shall not see, you shall not find. Nonetheless, how does it reconcile to our Mishnah that clearly said that a Jew's chametz she'over alav Pesach is also. So he says like this, but Rav Shimon comes upon this. Rav Shimon says, biblically speaking, chametz she'over alav Pesach, chametz that went over Pesach of a Jew that's now in existence, does not have any prohibition. But rabbinically, we put on a penalty. Rabbinically, we put on a penalty. Charlie, we're okay. You can hear me.
I know. I don't know if I'm the only one who has the sound is like a little choppy. Am I the only one?
Can everybody else hear me right?
I'm getting like static.
You getting
lot.
static?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
Maybe
the
if
first
you
time.
move, maybe you should move away from the microphone or something. Try
Yeah,
it.
maybe. Okay, I'll back up. How does this sound? Does this sound a little better?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Good.
better? Okay. So then I was too close to the microphone. Okay. So anyways, but you guys got what just happened over here. That we said that the chametz and we can eat, but in reality you can't. That's the interesting part of this Gemara. So now, Rava Oma, La'olam Rab Shimon. In fact, it's Rab Shimon, but Rab Shimon is the one that says before and after Pesach, the chametz is good. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's a geyser or a yid, which means it doesn't match up against the Mishnah. So he says like this, Rab Shimon Kanosa Kanos. Rab Shimon says, Minat Torah, biblically, you're right. After Pesach, even though the chametz went over Pesach, even though the Jew was over Bal Yirah, Bal Yamata, you shall not see, you shall not find. After Pesach, the Minat Torah, there's no Isser. But Midrabanan, rabbinically, they stuck a kanas on him. They stuck a penalty on him that says you cannot benefit from such chametz. Hoyel, because va'over Allah Bal Yirah, Bal Yamata, because you, the Jew, did not do what you were supposed to do before Pesach and burn the chametz or sell the chametz or nullify the chametz, and instead you kept it around and you kept it in your possession. So you were over on you shall not see and it shall not be found. Says the Reb Shimon, the Rabbanan went ahead and said you're not going to benefit from this that you were over on an Aveira. You're not going to benefit after Pesach. You're not going to be able to benefit from this chametz. You gain nothing by keeping the chametz around on Pesach. Very good. We are now on 29a2. So now the Gemara says, and if everybody could just, if you look quickly back on the Mishnah, just if you could put your, like, you know, make sure you have your finger on it, on Chav Ches Amud Aleph, on the bottom is the Mishnah, just so you can see it when what the Gemara here is saying. So you can flip back and forth. Bish, now we're back in our Gemara on 29a2. Bish Lema L'Rava, who said that it's only a rabbinic penalty because you were over, because rabbinically the Jew was over on Bal Yirah, you shall not see it on Passover. Hainu Diktani, that's why the Mishnah says at the end of the Mishnah, V'shel Yisrael, Aser B'hano, Shenema Lo Yireh L'cha Sa'ar. But a Jew's chametz that went over Pesach, it's awesome for benefit because it says, La Yireh L'cha Sa'ar, you shall not see of your chametz. Okay, but according to Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov, that says the Issa min Torah of eating chametz after Pesach comes from the words Lo Yeyochel Chametz. He says it comes from, obviously Rabbi Yehuda all the time says it's from Lo Yochel Chametz. Mishum Lo Yochel Chametz mi boyle. A Jew's chametz being aser comes from Lo Yeyochel Chametz. You shall not eat chametz, which meant that if you were over on anything of the isurim of chametz, it keeps going after Pesach. He only compared it to Bal Yirah with regard to the guy's chametz, to tell me that it's your chametz you shall not see, but the guy's chametz you can see. It's your chametz that you shall not eat, but the guy's chametz you could eat. But regarding the Jew's chametz, it came straight out of Lo Yeyochel Chametz. That's where he learned it, that the Isser becomes, that the Isser to eat, the prohibition of eating chametz begins at the 7th hour of the Erev Pesach when the Korban Pesach starts. Because and it continues all the way through Pesach to after Pesach for chametz that was over Olav HaPesach, that was in existence through Pesach, that was not nullified before Pesach. So the Mishnah should have said at the end, V'shel Yisrael also bahano shenema lo yochel chametz. Why does the Mishnah therefore say lo yireh l'cha sa'ar? Because that's not where we learn that the Jews' chametz is also before, during, and after. Something tomorrow. Me suffered asefakoi. Who said that this language on the end of the Mishnah, Shenema lo yireh l'chol that you shall not see the leaven, is going on the last part of the Mishnah, which says V'shel Yisrael from the Jew also by no, it's also for benefit. No, Arei Shekoi. It's going back to the beginning about Chometz Shal Nachri, the Chometz of a guy that Sha'over Olav Pesach that went over the Pesach Mutar Ba'ano that is allowed to have benefit from it, which now we know means you can even eat from it. V'hochi kama. This is what he would say. Chometz Shal Nachri Sha'over Olav Pesach. The Chometz of a guy which Pesach went over Pesach. And it's still in existence. Mutar b'hano. It's mutar for benefit even after Pesach. Why? Mishum shenema lo yireh lecha. It shall not be seen lecha to you. Shelecha iyataroya. Your chametz shall not be seen. Aval ataroya shalachen v'shal gavoya. But you can see the chametz of the goys and of hegdish, of the holy. And now we're going to learn the prohibition of eating chametz from the seeing of chametz. Just like by the seeing of chametz, the guy's chametz is allowed to be seen. So too, when it comes to eating, the guy's chametz is allowed to be eaten theoretically. And says the Gemara, "Va'azu l'tamayu." And Rabbi Acha ben Yaakov and Rava have what it called are going according to their own opinions in another machlokes. Deitma, ha'oichel sa'ar shel nachi sha'over olav Pesach. One who eats the chametz, the yeast, the leaven, the sour bread of a guy of which Pesach has passed, which means again that the chametz in existence throughout the time of Pesach. In other words, our supermarkets. Okay, the chametz existed over Pesach. L'divrei Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who asers, remember, who asers beginning before Pesach, on Pesach, and after Pesach. Rava on this Baraisa, Rava says loika. Okay, a Jew that eats the chametz of a goy over a lava Pesach, Rava says loika, he gets malchus, he gets lashes. He does not get lashes. Rava says that you get my lashes. Because according to Rava, he says this whole derasha of learning, eating of the guys from seeing of the guys, just like the guy's chametz is allowed to be seen, so the guy's chametz is allowed to be eaten. That's only according to Rabbi Shimon. According to Rava, Rabbi Yehuda says Aser, Aser, Aser. The chametz is Aser from 7 hours and on the Erev Pesach, on Pesach, and after Pesach. If it was chametz over Olav Pesach, if the chametz went over Pesach. Because he learns it out of Lo Ye'ochel Chametz, period. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds. Rabbi Yehuda holds that he holds it all the way through. Rabbi Yehuda does not hold that. Yolif Sa'ar Da'achila Misadiriya, because he does learn, like we just learned before, that the words of the Mishnah, Shenem Lo Yireh Lecha Chametz, is not going on the last part of the Mishnah, but it's in fact going on the first part of the Mishnah, teaching us that a guy's chametz is mutter for ano afilu she'over alav Pesach, even though it went over the Pesach. This is even according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rav Acha bar Yaakov. So Mameli, he says he does not get lashes. Okay, but now the Gemara says, fine, we got till here, wonderful, except for one minor technical thing. But in fact, we're going to find that Rav Acha bar Yaakov actually retreated, reverse field from his explanation of Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda would allow the guy's chametz she'over alav Pesach to be eaten. So, Zok the Gemara, the Tanya, because we learned. Ha'oichel chametz shel hegdish b'moyed mo'ah. One who eats chametz of hegdish, holy chametz, okay, during Pesach has committed me'ilah. He has used it inappropriately. V'yesh oimrim loy mo'al. And there are those who say he has not gone and committed me'ilah. He has not used it inappropriately. Ma yeshomer. Who is the yeshomer? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Yochanan says, I'll tell you who it is. It's Rabbi Nechumya ben Akani. It's Rabbi Nechumya ben Akani. We are now on 29A3. We're at the end of the end of the Amud Aleph. The Tanya, because it says Rabbi Nechumya ben Akana hoya oises Yom Kippurim kishabes l'tashlumin. Rabbi Nechumya ben Akana made the day of Yom Kippur like Shabbos with regard to monetary payments. What's going on here? As you know, Shabbos, if somebody is over on Shabbos, if somebody breaks one of the laws on Shabbos deliberately, he's chayiv skila. He's chayiv to be stoned to death. It's the death penalty. On Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the Sabbath, the Shabbos Shabbosai, the Shabboses of all Shabboses. Yom Kippur, if you break Yom Kippur, if somebody eats on Yom Kippur, if somebody works on Yom Kippur, etc., on purpose, he gets chorus. He gets incision, he gets cut off. Here's the question. If what happens while he's going ahead and he's breaking Yom Kippur, he's working. In other words, he decides Yom Kippur falls out on a Sunday and he figures he's going to play football. And so he goes play football and he throws the football and he breaks somebody's window. Okay? So now is he responsible to pay for the window? We have an halacha, and the halacha is Kom le midirabi minei. You're only responsible for the worst punishment that you can get. In English, Kom le midirabi minei means he's subject only to the more severe punishment. When a person is getting the death penalty, and at the moment that he gets the death penalty, he did damage, and he has a monetary damage, we say he gets the death penalty and he doesn't have to pay up the monetary damage. You get the worst thing that you can get. Kom le midirabi minei. So this is always a very important lesson in child rearing. If the child goes ahead and you tell your kid not to do something and he doesn't, so let's say you tell your kid don't play with the lamp and he doesn't listen to it and he plays with the lamp and breaks the lamp at the same time. So now you got two things in front of him. You got you want to teach your kid that he's got to repay the lamp, he's got to take it out of his allowance. On the other hand, you want to give the kid a potch, you want to give him a spank or a screaming at. So can you give him both? According to the Torah, you can only give him one punishment. You can't give him both. If you're going to give him the smack or you're going to scream at him, that's much worse than asking him to pay. Okay? So therefore, you got to decide on which way to do it. In other words, the Torah is saying we don't overdo punishments. The rule is, again, Kom le midirabi minei. It is a rule that we will find throughout Shas being used in many, many different types of situations. Now to our situation. Back to the
Good question.
Yes.
Is it always with execution? You know, with kares, is that the only one that really is involved?
Very good question. The Gemara in many places, there will be Madhyamim that will say that if you get malchus, lashes, if you get lashes and you also occurred a monetary thing, you only get the lashes, you don't get.
Okay, that's because every time I've seen it, like in Sanhedrin, it was always with kares or skila or whatever.
Right. So the reason why that doesn't always hold true because there's a big machlokes in Shas, whether malchus itself is somewhat of a death penalty. In other words, one says it's not, another one say yes, it is. You were really supposed to get the death penalty, but the Torah is allowing you to get it by to get hit. Obviously,
I
we're
got it.
big, but the
Terrific.
answer is we will bang into that. How far does this rule go?
Okay.
So now, the Tanya, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana hoya oisis Yom Kippurim kishabbos l'tashlumin. Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana made Yom Kippur with the same like Shabbos with regard to monetary payments when somebody at the same time incurred the death penalty. Ma Shabbos, that when somebody does an action, but that he breaks it is chayiv skilo, is chayiv to be stoned, right? Mischayiv benafshoi, he's liable for his life with stoning. Who put him in tishlumin, but he's potter. He's exempt from paying off the monetary obligation. Af Yom Kippur mischayiv benafshoi, he's liable with his life, which is chorus. Who put him in tishlumin, and he's potter from paying off. The reason why it's not so obvious on, you would say, there's a Kavachayme here. If Mad of Shabbos, this is the rule, then certainly Yom Kippur, this is the rule, because Yom Kippur is Shabbos, Shabbosoim, right? The Sabbath of Shabbos. So why did he have to learn it out? The answer is because monetary punishment is here, right? The broken window is here. You should pay out. The death penalty on Shabbos is also here. It's stoning. It's here. They're both here. Chorus is a matter of faith. It's not something you see. It's minat shamayim. It's from heaven. So we've got a minat shamayim death penalty, a heavenly death penalty, versus a very human monetary obligation. That's already a little different. That one, the comparison is not so simple. Shabbos, it's a lot easier to say, only give the more severe one because we're giving it. We're stoning versus making him pay out. On Yom Kippur, we're not doing anything with regard to the death penalty. It's still enough of a comparison to put it together. That's how you have to look at this Gemara. Okay? So, since one
Excuse me.
Chorus, to eat in
Yes,
Chorus, yes.
It seems to me that chorus is much worse than skila.
Correct, but only if you believe.
I can't if you only believe. All right.
Okay.
If you don't believe, then you can not keep Shabbos or Yom Kippur.
Again, the point here is, you understand what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying.
The point is,
but no, I mean, chorus involves future generations.
Correct. Chorus is much worse.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
having said that, by the way, even on chorus, there's always tshuva.
Right.
There is nothing that stands in the way of doing repentance. There's no such thing that somebody is in the dark that can't come into the light. Yesterday, Hashem, it says, yesterday you were Russia, today you're the best friend of Hashem. That's the way it works. And until we say this every Yom Kippur, until the day of death, you can return. And if you return, miyad tekabel, immediately you are accepted. That's all that it is, right? So, chorus is what exactly is chorus? That is a totally different conversation when we have a little bit more time and when we hit bris milah, which remember I told you that Pesach and milah are always tied because they're the only two positive commandments that are chayiv chorus, that are chayiv being cut off. If milah is a positive commandment, you shall circumcise your son on the 8th day, is a positive commandment that if you don't do it, you chayiv chorus. And the korban Pesach, which is a positive commandment, if you don't bring the Pesach sacrifice, it's what do you call it also? Remind me when we get there to bring this up, and Charlie will come back to what exactly is chorus, especially according to the Rambam, which is a very fundamental, very, very fundamental to Jewish life. Anyways, the short and long goes over here. So what's the point here? Because chametz on Pesach, you get chorus. If you eat chametz on Pesach, you get chorus, right? So therefore, since you get chorus, you're exempt from mi'ilah. You're exempt from the lav of mi'ilah. Because the worst case is chorus, and mi'ilah is in other words, using it inappropriately. The lav of using it inappropriately, it doesn't apply, Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rabbi Yosef says, I'll give you a different case. There's a machlokes in a baraisa that says, are you allowed to redeem? Are you allowed to be paida holy items in order to feed these now items to dogs? If you remember, we said things are, and we're going to learn this Gemara simply. We said things that are things that are kache, bedek habayis, kache. We said there are things that are kedushas haguf and kedushas domin. Things that are monetary sanctity as opposed to physical sanctity. Monetary sanctity can go ahead and be redeemed. You're allowed to redeem it onto money, so the money now becomes holy, and the thing itself becomes unsacred, becomes chulin. The question is, are you allowed to do that in order to feed it to dogs? Because obviously that is a very not nice way of using what used to be holy stuff. Okay, so the Gemara says like this: am I allowed to do this? The one who says he has committed mi'ilah, he has used it inappropriately, says that you are allowed to what he called, you are allowed to redeem it, you are allowed to redeem the items in order to feed the dogs. You did not mo'al, that you're not allowed to. And the reason for this is simple. Because the one who says you're not mo'al, the answer is, he says he says the kedusha, its holiness, never leaves. We have a rule: if it's mo'al, if you use it inappropriately, the kedusha leaves. So if you're not over on milah, that means its kedusha never left, and you can't use it to throw it to a dog. If you are mo'al in it, it means you use it inappropriately and its kedusha fell off. Well, if the kedusha fell off, okay, now I can give it to the dog. Okay, so it's up to the Gemara, and the Gemara is going to explain all this. Rabbi Acha bar Rava Tanila, Rabbi Acha bar Rava taught, and now we're on Chav Tes Amid Beis 29b1. Okay, says the Gemara, taught it Lahal Shemaita Mishmei the Rabbi Yosi B'Halishna. He taught this explanation in the name of Rabbi Yosi, but in this version, he had a certain slightly different version. Everybody says this is totally inappropriate. You cannot feed holy stuff to dogs. It's just not right. This is what really is going on. That's something that causes that this will eventually be worth money. This is what we're arguing on. We're arguing on like this: the future value of $1 versus the present value of $1. Like chametz on Pesach. If I say that chametz on Pesach is completely osir, it means the chametz has no value. Now, but after Pesach, it will have value. Same thing with Hegdish. I'm not allowed to use Hegdish. I'm not allowed to use holy stuff. So it has no value now. But if I could redeem it, or if I do me'ilah, I use it inappropriate, and now I bring it out of holiness into non-sacred, now it has value. So the question the Gemara says over here is, Gemara says like this: that's something that can lead to that it now will have monetary value. Is it like money now? Is it like money now? Does the future determine the present or not? Man, the moil, the one who says you are moil, if you use holy, if you use this, if you eat the chametz of hegdish, you are moil. He says kisava davar agar lamaman kemamay dami. Something that will cause it to be money is considered like money now. So since when I eat chametz on Pesach, the hegdish on chametz, it goes and you're over on me'ilah, right? And then therefore it's worth money. What do you call? That's why I can be mild, because if I could, I can be mild. It means you committed milah now. The one who eats chametz of hegdish has committed milah. Umandi amaloi moal the ksava davar agayin l'momen lav k'momen dami. Just because in the future, if you redeemed it, it would become money. Right now, it's not money. I look at things by Shehu Sham, where it stands today. Today, it's holy. Today, I'm not letting you off the hook. It's going to stay holy. It's going to stay holy, which means that you're not moiled. Because only if it can drop out of holiness can it be moiled. If it can't drop out of holiness, it means it retains its holiness. If it retains its holiness, it means you were never over on Me'ilah. Because doing Me'ilah, being over on the prohibition of Me'ilah, of using it inappropriately, means that I took it and dropped it into chulin. Good. Everybody can still hear me? We're all good? Good.
Yeah.
Good. No more static. Excellent. So now we finally figured out how to use this. Okay, after a month, believe it or not, after today, it's a month. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Omar, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, the kula almona, davar agarim l'mamin k'mamin dami. Anything that could cause it to become money is money now, right? The future determines what it is now. If in the future it could be worth value, it has value now. So what are we talking about? We're arguing in the back again to the argument of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, whether a Jew is allowed to eat chametz she'over olav Pesach, whether a Jew is allowed to eat chametz that have been left over Pesach, where it had not been sold, it had not been burnt, it had not been nullified, so the person was over by Yimotza, can it be eaten after Pesach or not? Man, the one who says you have not committed me'ilah when you eat the chametz of Hegdish, ki Rabbi Yehuda, because he holds that chametz is even also after Pesach, so it has no value even after Pesach. If you're never going to be allowed to eat this chametz, so this chametz means that you were never moal. You can't do anything to this chametz. Uman ki Rab Shimon, who says after Pesach it has plenty of value because it becomes completely mutter. So it's the same thing over and over again, but it's essentially how you want to learn it, and again from which direction you want to learn it. So now the Gemara said, what do you call it? Now, before we brought all of this, because we said that Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov took back his position from Rabbi Yehuda regarding that a guy's chametz after Pesach, remember the way he learned up, was that a guy's chametz after Pesach, according to Rabbi Yehuda, could be eaten even though it went over Pesach, because just like the guy's chametz you're allowed to see on Pesach, so to the guy's chametz you're allowed to eat on Pesach and certainly after Pesach. But how could Rabbi Yaakov bar Yaakov, who's the one who just said what we just learned? Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov said that everybody holds davar agarim l'mamin k'mamin dami. Right? How could Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, chametz of Hegdish has no value because it's usher even after Pesach? That's why, according to Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov, he said chametz of Hegdish, according to Rabbi Yehuda, loy moal, has no me'ilah. He says, what are you talking about? The Rabbi Yehuda yolav sa'ar da'achila misad re'iyah. And what did we say before? You shall not see your chametz, but chametz shel acherim v'shel givoya, you're allowed to. The chametz of a guy and of the Most High, which means, of course, Hegdish. So Rabbi Yehuda before, according to Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov, said that the chametz of a guy and the chametz of Hegdish was allowed to be seen and was allowed, and then we said, same thing with eating. Your chametz you're not allowed to eat, but the guy's chametz you were allowed to eat, and you were allowed to eat the chametz of Hegdish. You just said over here, Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov, Mandi Omar Lord Moal, Ki Rabbi Yehuda, was like Rabbi Yehuda, i.e., because the chametz after Pesach will not be able to be eaten, so it continues not to have value. That is not true. It's Hegdish, according to you. It means that Rav Acha bar Yaakov obviously reversed himself from what he said before, and he says in the final analysis that Rabbi Yehuda learns it out from Lo Yeyochel Chametz, that starting with the 7th hour of Erev Pesach, all the way through to Pesach, all the way to after Pesach, with regard to Chametz Shavra Alova Pesach, whether it's a Jew's Chametz, whether it's a Goy's Chametz, you cannot eat it. What do you call that? And now we got everybody in line. And by the way, we have one more interpretation. Rav Ashi says the Kula Alma ain't pointed. Everybody agrees, of course, you cannot redeem hegdish, holy stuff, to feed it to a guy. V'dover, and he says further, v'dover agarim l'momen lav k'momen dami. And everybody holds the future regarding money does not determine its current status. Absolutely not. We look at things b'asher u'sham as they are today. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Today is today. Tomorrow it might be worth money, but today it's not worth money. Here we're arguing regarding Rabbi Yossi Agalili and Rabbanan. If you remember, Rabbi Yossi Agalili is the one that says, it's a wonderment to me that anybody should even think that any chametz is ever also ba'ana. According to Rabbi Yossi Agalili, chametz is always mutar ba'ana. You're always allowed to have benefit on chametz, even on Pesach. Right? So he said like this. So the one who says you've committed milah is obviously Rabbi Yossi, because he says chametz you could even benefit from even on Pesach itself. So it always has monetary value. Who clearly say that you're not allowed to have benefit on Pesach. So it has no value. We are now on 29b2. Okay, just a little further. Omarav. Oh, you know what? We're going to stop right here. Perfect. It's a perfect place to stop. We're at the 2 dots.